All right, join us on a week in London. We are going to tell you what we saw and what we thought of it.
The Tate Modern was one of my picks, and we went there not knowing that you needed to have tickets for the specialized exhibits. So some of the artists that I most wanted to see, we weren't able to see because we didn't do that. This was day one of our tour, so we weren't quite ready yet. But there are permanent exhibits there of modern art with Warhol, etc., that you can take advantage of for free.
All right outside of the Tate Modern is the Millennium Bridge. We walked across it. It's a beautiful picture spot. So if you can fit that in, go for it. All right, day one, we arrived and we didn't get out to see anything until the afternoon. So it was probably about 1, 2 o'clock before we got out.
Right. We went to our hotel, and then we pretty quickly had to get out of the hotel because our room wasn't ready. So we decided to cross something off our list. This is what we had planned all along. I really wanted to see the Tate Modern, so we learned how to take the tube. And then we went to the Tate Modern and the Millennium Bridge. I would say Tate Modern was sort of disappointing for me since it was my pick. We didn't know that the exhibits required pre-booking, and we just didn't have that figured out. And also we were exhausted. So trying to figure all of that out while we were exhausted wasn't a good look. So we just sort of went through the free exhibits, which there's plenty to see, but I would say you're probably going to want to, if art is something you're into, please do yourself a favor and look at the exhibits in advance and have the tickets so you can get in and out and see exactly what you want. So was it a waste of time? I don't think so, but I might be the only person that felt that way in our group.
So we went with our father, and neither him or I are into modern art. So this wasn't my cup of tea, but I do really enjoy art, and I probably would have liked the exhibits that you had to pay for. I think they were kind of pricey though when we went around London and compared it to other things.
Yeah, really.
It was actually quite expensive compared to some things that you paid for and you could spend hours at. Those exhibits, I'm not sure if they would have been worth it or not. Maybe if you really love that artist.
We didn't get in. So it's sort of hard to rate this entirely, but yeah, that was a little bit disappointing, but our fault.
Yeah. On the free portion, I think it was, it was a good thing to do that day, and we should have done our work ahead of time. We just didn't. All we put down for that day is we're going to go to the Tate Modern Museum.
Right. And then we also were able to cross off the Millennium Bridge that day because it was directly across the street from where we got off at the tube. So it's an easy tube ride to get there. And it is beautiful. It's a great place to take pictures, super photo ops. And we took advantage of that with our dad. And then also our concierge gave us a great recommendation. He said, why don't we walk back on the opposite side of the Thames, so the side that the Tate Modern is on, along the river to get back to our hotel. So we did that. We did a lot of walking that day, but it actually was really helpful for us in a great way to acclimate the first day.
Yeah, I think we got to see the London Eye, even though that's not something that we wanted to do. We walked right past that, so we got to see a lot of shops. It was kind of a nice afternoon.
So day one, we started at the Tower of London. We took the tube from our hotel area. It was very easy to do, very easy to find. And we actually had tickets for the first showing or whatever, the first tour of the morning. And what did you think about that?
I think you have to be a morning person if you are anywhere, because being the first one definitely pays off.
Right. So we the first thing we saw was the Crown Jewels, and there's several buildings there, but that's the one we went to first. And I think it was beneficial to go there right away because there were very few people in there. But if there are a lot, it would be hard to get up close and see the Crown Jewels. Next up was St. Paul's Cathedral. It was pretty close by. We took a tour of the upstairs area, and you can also do a self-guided version downstairs. Pictures aren't allowed everywhere there, and they're also going to do a bag search when you get there. So just something to know about that.
All right, our first full day was the Tower of London and St. Paul's Cathedral, and they were actually in pretty close vicinity, but it was raining that day, so make sure you have an umbrella. It's London after all.
Yeah, and a raincoat. But we made one mistake we made, I think, was that we both agree that we probably just should have gotten a cab and taken that distance, because we were traveling not just with ourselves but with our father, and we did get a little mixed up going back and forth and had to ask some people for directions. That worked out okay, but I would suggest taking a cab or the tube, unless you have enough time and it's not raining.
Yeah, it wasn't a far walk, but the rain certainly didn't help. And then by the time we got to the cathedral, our father had pretty much had it. So he didn't partake in the tour that we did upstairs. I would highly recommend that tour. We learned a lot of really interesting stuff there.
Right, and that's the place where we went into the library that had all of their volumes of religious books. So that was something that was kind of a treat, because they were in the process of doing something special there, and most people aren't allowed in there, and we just lucked into that day. But if you're somebody that cannot do stairs, that's not the tour for you. I can't remember how many they told us there were, but it is a long passage up, and it's difficult. Even though she said we were going to take it at moderate speed, I felt like we didn't really do that.
Yeah, it wasn't moderate speed.
I know we're both in decent shape, so I would say just factor that in. Also, this is a place where you're going to want to get tickets in advance.
All right, our second full day, we started the day off at the Churchill War Rooms, and we had, once again, the first tickets there. It did get crowded when we left. If I'm being honest, this was not my favorite place, but if you're really into Winston Churchill, it might be the place for you. And from there, we went to the Parliament or Palace of Westminster, as it is called, and everybody in our group thought that was a fantastic tour. Once again, you need to book both of these things in advance.
Next, we headed to Borough Market, which is a great food shop area. They have almost anything you can think of, probably a ton of things you would never think of, but it's the kind of place where you're going to buy things to bring home, like a farmer's market, or you're going to buy pre-made food like paella or gelato and eat it there while you're standing.
Day two, our second full day, we started the day off at Churchill War Room. So what do you have to say about that, Lisa?
I would say this was recommended to me by somebody who's maybe more of an aficionado of Winston Churchill than I am. There's a lot of little tiny memorabilia, like a button from a uniform or a letter written to his third grade teacher or what have you. In addition to some very cool stuff, it was the actual war rooms that they used during the war. But by today's standards, I think it lacked a little bit of excitement. Unless you are somebody who really is passionate about Winston Churchill, this might be one that you pass on if you're short on time. You can learn a lot, but I don't think it's great for maybe tweens.
I can't imagine a kid that would enjoy this.
No, and to be honest, Julie's kid was there. Now he's almost 30, but he was not thrilled with it either. So
yeah, the thing he had to say about it was that I think he said he would give it like 3.5 out of 10 stars because there was a restroom available, the temperature was comfortable, and they had a snack bar.
Yeah,
those are the things that he rated it on.
So take that for what it's worth. Our father, who is in his 70s, loved it, thought it was great. I think could have stayed longer had we been willing, but we were not willing. So again, it was first tour of the day here, I think is kind of key because it's very small minutia of stuff. You're kind of fighting to see it at different places, and the more crowded it got, the more difficult that became. So I would say if you do want to put that one on your list, do it first thing in the morning.
And from there we went to Parliament or Westminster Palace, and we did the self-guided audio tour, which actually was a really good tour. They did have tours, but it was just something that we weren't interested in, and I think I
learned as much as I needed to and wanted to learn from the self-guided tour. It was a very easy process. That was a place where people got turned away, again, if you did not have tickets in advance, so make sure you do that.
And it was definitely one of my favorite tours that we did.
It was
because I
it was
learned so
fascinating.
much.
Yeah, and I mean, to me, like, it was spectacularly beautiful. There was art, there was government, there was history, great architecture. So it was, all in all, I thought, a fabulous tour.
Yeah.
One that I did not expect to like as much as I did.
And everybody out of the four of us, all four of us really enjoyed this tour. So we highly recommend this. Borough Market was another thing. We were so excited to get there. We were hungry by this time.
Right.
Because we'd already done 2 tours that day. And it was a Saturday, which I would never suggest anybody go to Borough Market on a nice day that is a Saturday.
Nice day, Saturday afternoon. Very bad choice because it closes down around
5 or
5.
6 maybe. Yeah.
So we were there maybe 3 o'clock.
Right.
And it was packed. I mean, to the point where we had to kind of hold on to each other to make sure we didn't lose each other in a really tight crowd. And I think it was a little bit overwhelming for our father.
Oh, it definitely was. It was overwhelming for all of us. Like,
Yeah.
Maybe our thought was, okay, we'll meet up back at this place and everybody can go grab something to eat. But there was just too many people. That couldn't happen. So I do think it's a totally cool place to go, and I would go on one of the weekdays. All right, on our third full day, we started the day off with a nice long walk to Hyde Park from our hotel, and it was actually very nice outside.
It was gorgeous.
And Hyde Park was absolutely beautiful. Because it was a springtime, flowers are starting to come up, and we wanted to see the Princess Diana Memorial Fountain, which you will get to see here. And we also were across from a bunch of museums, which we ended up going to see the Victoria and Albert Museum, which definitely was kind of exciting, and it wasn't something that we had planned, and I would put it on my list of to-dos.
Yeah,
if you were
must.
there.
I would say must if you have the time.
The Victoria and Albert Museum is one of those places you could spend hours in and probably not come close to seeing everything. The statues were breathtaking and beautiful and a sight to be seen. So we're giving this definitely 2 thumbs up.
Next up was Kensington Palace. This is a palace that does not have a lot of ornamentation or big rooms for you to see. It actually is concentrating at this point in time more on an exhibition of gowns and couture.
All right, day 3 was a Sunday for us, so it was kind of relaxed. We got up that morning and went for a walk. We actually walked down to Buckingham Palace and looked at that from the outside, and from there we walked to Hyde Park.
Yeah, there really weren't a lot of people at Buckingham Palace, so that was enjoyable. We walked past another memorial. I can't remember what it was. We'll let you know that later. But we went to Hyde Park, which we just sort of stumbled into, and it was beautiful. There were gardens. There was a beautiful lake where you could rent boats. There's a little snack area, a little cafe sitting on that lake. And then eventually we made it our way over to Princess Diana's Memorial Fountain.
It was kind of nice to watch. Like there was a couple of girls that were riding horses through the park. Things
Right.
that we don't see here.
Very often.
Yeah, so it was nice.
Yeah, and the Memorial Fountain is unusual. I would say it's just something that I wanted to personally see, having watched that whole situation with her getting married and whatnot, just have been in our lives a lot. So I thought that was fun to do.
I think it was, we were expecting maybe more.
Yes.
It's very serene and quiet and calm, which was nice. We got there and we were the first people through the door.
Yeah,
on that.
we literally were the first people when they opened up the gates, and that was just by happenstance.
Yeah, and I mean it's outside, but we just kind of fell into that, and from there we walked up, and I think we saw the Victoria, or maybe the Albert Museum.
Oh yeah, the statue. There's a statue of Albert
Right.
across the way from the music venue that he has, and so we were just checking things off a list we didn't even know we wanted to see, or where they were. They're all in very close proximity to each other.
And then we fell into the Victoria and Albert Museum, and we thought, okay, it's free. We're going to run inside and see what it's like, and we would put that on our must-do list.
It was phenomenal. There were beautiful sculptures, every imaginable kind of thing that you would want to see in a museum. It was fascinating. I am surprised that was not on our list. I love going to museums, and that wasn't anywhere on our list. It was sort of an afterthought.
Yeah, we were like, well, if it happens, it happens. And it did.
It did happen.
And everybody that went loved it.
Yeah, I think we could have spent more time there if we wanted to, but I didn't feel shortchanged. It's a lot to put all of this stuff in one day, so you do have to pace yourself so you're not overwhelmed.
Right. So from there, we had booked a tour at Kensington Palace. And once again, you needed to have tickets to get in to see this. And the big exhibition for this point in time was couture dresses. So I think in our thought, we were going to go see a palace,
Right.
with a side venue of couture dresses.
Right. That is not what it was. It was really focusing on the dresses. So the concept was couture dresses and how they sort of mirrored court life, where you would get dressed up. Interesting concept, but I would say that was 90% of what we saw there. And the other 10% was maybe some rooms that Victoria was in when she was a child or what have you. So I was definitely disappointed in that. I mean, the couture was fine, but I really wanted to see, when you hear Kensington Palace, you're thinking of a palace. I did not feel like that when we were there. Also, there wasn't a lot of guidance in there. You were really left up to your own devices to sort of meander about, and you'd have to search out a docent or something if you wanted to ask a question. So we were with two men, our father and her son, and they did not really enjoy it at all because, you know, they don't care about Lizzo's gowns, apparently. But if that's the sort of thing you're really into, it might be something that would be very nice for a teenager or young people who understand that culture a little bit better. But if you're going to see a palace, I wouldn't put this one on your list.
All right, day 4, we started out at Westminster Abbey. We were first group through the door once again, or very, very close to first through the door. This is loaded with information, and you need to get yourself a little bit of education before you go in. Every place you look, you're going to see something important, and you're going to walk by important things without even knowing that they're there. We did the regular tour by ourselves on the first floor, which included spectacular things. And then we also paid for a tour that allowed us to see the Queen's Jubilee collection upstairs, which I would say was well worth it.
All right, so we had planned to go to the National Gallery after this, which we did, and it was so fantastic, but yet overwhelming. The art was beautiful, but you're walking past masterpieces that you've read about or heard about. You just kind of have to take your time. It is going to be crowded here no matter when you go, because everything there is just worth seeing. So I would allow a minimum of 2 hours. You could spend days there if that is your thing. Right outside the doors of the National Gallery is Trafalgar Square. It is a great place if it's a nice day to sit outside and maybe catch a little snack. Also do some people watching. All right, we lucked into the day that started with Westminster
Right,
Abbey.
and again, going in early, you could see the crowd building behind us, and after maybe the first 20 minutes, it started feeling very crowded. Like in certain spots, you were just hustled by things. And again, it's a place where you can spend hours and hours and hours looking at the minutia of things. So maybe figure out what you want to see a little bit and get to in advance. That's on the main floor. We also did a Jubilee tour, which was from the Queen's Jubilee. which was upstairs. That's a separate purchase.
So much to see, and really enjoyable stuff.
Right. I mean, all sorts of things, like from funeral effigies of the kings and queens to coronation robes, some of which were missing because they were out for the coronation, which was kind of cool when we saw them on TV. And then even something like, we happened to be walking by something and looked down, and I pulled it out and realized it was the Magna Carta. So there's so much to delve into there, but I truly felt that the upstairs tour was well worth it, and it wasn't very crowded.
Then you're back downstairs again. Now, you can take your time going through the Abbey, but what I would say is you're blowing past some of the most, people are buried there, and there's some of the most important people in the history of England, and
Right.
you just don't have time to seep it all in. It's definitely an overwhelming place, and you would want to go back there again if you could.
Right.
All right, and from there, we went to the National Gallery, which everybody in our family loves art, and this was a place where you are seeing the masters work, and you're just blown away by how huge they are, how beautiful they are, and at some point we just became so overwhelmed by seeing all of this that we were like, okay, we need to leave.
Yeah.
Not because it wasn't beautiful, but
We literally walked through a room of impressionist paintings and said, I can't take one more thing in, because it is
sensory overload.
It is sensory overload between the things we had seen at Westminster, the things building up all week, and then you're just immersed in something that you could spend, again, many days, weeks, months going through the artwork. So you really, I think it's good to kind of pick something there that you want to see, but if you have more time, spend more time. If you have less, spend less.
All right, Covent Garden was a shopping area that has high scale, boutique-y type of stores, and it has also kind of the kitsch little things that you would buy that represent that you were there in London.
It was a great place to go to grab some gifts from low end to high end, and it was just a fun atmosphere. It felt very safe, very picturesque, lots of little picture spots along the way. There are places to eat there as well. A lot of people are familiar with the afternoon teas that they serve that are more formalized. Just look through your options and pick one that suits you. We did the one in our own hotel because it was affordable, it was convenient. There's finger sandwiches, scones, you get to a selection of teas.
Just like when you go to New York City, they have wonderful plays available in London. We went to see Ain't Too Proud, but I highly suggest that you make sure that you fit one of these into your schedule. We went to Covent Garden in the morning, which is just an upscale shopping area. But I say upscale meaning that the stores surrounding that area are upscale, but Covent Garden itself is just it's a small outdoor shopping area that's covered.
Right, it's a covered area. There's little stores, so some of them are more high end, and some of them are more souvenir driven. There's little carts with souvenirs and various things, so it's a great place to shop and pick up gifts from low end to high end. There's also a separate little area that is just the vendors that you see on the side of the street kind of thing, where I happened to purchase 3 tins of tea that day there, and you got some sweatshirts, and I mean, so I got some perfume at a nicer store, and a handbag. I mean, so these are it's a big variety of things that you can choose from. I think it's a great place to go because there is so much variety. You're not just in a high-end area where maybe you don't feel like you can afford everything, or you're maybe even a little intimidated. I think this was a more relatable area to be in.
That night we went to a play. And so just like if you went to New York City, you might want to see a play. If you go to London, they have some fabulous plays. We saw Ain't Too Proud. It was so much fun. And we were a little bit nervous because that was the only night that we were going to be getting on the subway after dark. So we were nervous about that. And we were so proud of ourselves afterwards because we got on the subway, we got back.
I, of course, wanted to take a cab, but we went with the throngs of other people who were in the theater district, followed the crowd, got on the tube, and got home it cost us so much less and it was so easy. I would do it again in a heartbeat.
All right, our final day, we went past Buckingham Palace, and you can see the guards out there. It's really cool. If you get a chance to see the changing of the guard, I suggest that. We didn't have time on this trip. We walked past Big Ben. Everything is so close by in London. You're walking past fabulous things everywhere you look.